Good morning, Europe. Good afternoon, Manila, and welcome to this webinar on the Philippine real estate sector, organized by the EU Philippines Business Network and the British Chamber of Commerce of the Philippines. My name is Joona Selin, and I will be your moderator for today's session. Philippine real estate sector, one of the booming industries in the country right now. And we will hear a quick overview of the economy and also of the sector itself, followed by a couple of testimonials from entrepreneurs from the industry. So before going to the bulk of the program, I would like to say a few words about the organizers, us as the EU Philippines Business Network. And so moving on to that, the EPBN, as we are called. Actually, before getting ahead of myself, the agenda for today. After my introduction, I'll be presenting our three speakers. After which we'll hear the presentations, and to wrap it up, we'll have a Q&A session wherein you'll have the chance to get the questions answered. Please type in your questions to the chat box during the presentation. So now then, going on to the to EPBN. So we are a EU co-founded partnership of 8 chambers of commerce and business organizations operating here in Manila. And what we do is that we promote increasing the exports and investments from all EU member states to the Philippines. And on the one hand, we do that through advocacy and market access, meaning making the ride smoother for EU companies to operate in the country. And on the other hand, we are engaged in what we call the EU outreach and business support services. And this webinar, of course, is part of that, talking about the opportunities in the Philippines, and then also being ready to handhold new companies to enter the market. The 8 partners that I was referring to are the Belgian, the British, the European, the French, German, Italian, Spanish, and the Nordic business councils and chambers of commerce here. And this webinar we are doing in cooperation specifically with the British Chamber. We have Mr. Carlo Cordaro, who is the owner of Atelier a Cebu-based furniture manufacturing company. And Carlo will be talking about his experience of doing business in the Philippines. I'd like to turn it over to Carlo Cordaro in Cebu.
Thank you very much for the introduction. Good afternoon, everyone. The story of Cebu Veneer Corporation, which is my company, and consequently Atelier A, which is our Italian brand name, has been a good example, even though in a very small size, and also in the low tech, because now we making furniture I consider as a low tech things, considering that everything is oriented to electronics, communication, and other things. But let's say that thanks to the Philippine market, in our 30 years history, the company was established in 1985. So this year we are turning our 30 years. Thanks to the Philippine market, I was saying, the company was able to survive the 2008 complete change of the market perspective. Since we are based in the Mactan Export Processing Zone, which is a free tax from duty and taxes on the importation, and there are several zones in the Philippines, and of course we have a certain quota only for the local market, and mostly has to be on the export market. But let's say after 2008, when there's been, as all of us knows, a total sort of financial meltdown all over the world, thanks to the Philippine market and our flexibility, we have been able to serve properly also this very effervescent and sparkling market. And I would say that thanks to the good fundamental of the Philippine market, the real estate, the hotel, and consequently residences has been and it is quite a solid market. Now, personally, I came into the Philippines, and my story is very small, as mentioned shortly in this presentation that is showing in the screen. I was a financial analyst, and I came here to just do a due diligence of this little veneering plant. But then I personally really thought that this country could have had a good future. I fall in love for the technique, the wood, and the human factor. That is a very, very important thing. And so I diversify completely the factory from just making merely sort of raw material, which was the veneer, into panels, interior, doors, and we go down the road and we integrated vertically to do complete turnkey projects for hotels and residences of restaurants or whatever kind of project is going on. Of course, we always kept our export market, which was an important driven force, but being in my previous life, let's say, an economist, for me, the market, $1 or 1 pesos, if it comes from Tokyo, from Manila, or from New York or Rome, it doesn't make any difference. So I always look at the local or domestic market in a very favorable way. And I think that when we look at the numbers, even though we are in a furniture sector, which is a very mature sector, so as I said, we are in a low tech, still there are several segments of the market that were not fulfilled. Now they are, because all the top brands, being in Italy, of course, an Italian, I observe the Italian company, how they moved. In the last few years, there is nothing that you have to look for. Everything, all the brands are in Manila, all the necessary top level interior fabrics, lamps, and whatever is already present in the market, even though there are several niches to be still filled. For example, I think that the Philippine market, it reminds me a bit like Dubai 15, 16 years ago, where everyone were building a house or buying an apartment, and then they go to IKEA. So I think that there is a huge need, I'm speaking against my interest, but anyway, I'm not that large. There will be a very important market also for the furniture on the mid-low end, and not only looking at the top-end market. And so I think since as mentioned by my predecessor, there are the call center, there is the creation of a mid-class. I think that there is also a need for furniture, interior, and any other products that could be also related to the new yuppies, even though they don't have an income like in Western country, but every country, I think, has its own story, and the Philippines has its own growth. Definitely the income per head looks like low, but I would say that is too generic, because there are areas, rural areas in the Philippines where the income is extremely low, but the people still have a very comfortable life. In the cities, definitely is much different than the one that is reflected to the big numbers. So there is room for market, for importation, of course, because the peso is very strong. But also I think that as a manufacturer in the Philippines, I would say that it could be like to be a sort of Trojan horse, because nowadays, in any case, shipments, and despite the low cost of oil, still shipments are very expensive, and furniture the transport of furniture is really, the cost factor is important, the transport cost is an important factor. And in any case, to be present in the market, it's very important, not only because you can reach any kind of niche depending by your flexibility, but also because it's not really the furniture commodities that easily you can order via email or via catalog. But there are other factors. So I recommend against my interest that, in my opinion, despite the furniture industry, honestly speaking, has had a big decrease in terms of number of companies that are operating in the country after the 2008 crisis, in my opinion, reorganizing and looking at a certain sector, like I say, more on the low and mid end, there will be interesting volume of the market, because the top end market is, as usual, super crowded. But since this venue and this video conference has been organized to show and to promote how it's possible to do business in this country, I can be also a little example how a small and micro businessman like I was when I arrived here was able to survive and to overtook any kind of obstacle. Actually, I since it's already 20 years I'm living here. There has been also several turmoil of any kind, but mostly, if I draw a line, I would like to say that there are a couple of important things that make this possible, this investment also possible. One thing is that safety. Despite what CNN or whatever go into the news, personally, I've been here 20 years and cross finger, but I felt always very safe. I felt there was a good politicians, also very good, very well oriented in protecting, let's say, the exporters, the foreign companies, and every time there were a problem, they were very accommodating in a very, very professional way. So I feel this country, for me so far, has been safe. Another important things that you can count on, since I repeat, I was an economist before and still I like to observe these things, the currency. The Philippine pesos, funny to say, is one of the most stable and strong currency in the world from 2008 to now, but also if you analyze the path and the graphics of the last 20 years, is a stable currency. There has been some heavy fluctuation. $1 was buying 55 pesos 10 years ago, more or less, or 11, 12, I don't remember. And then it went down to 40 pesos per dollar, and now it averages 46, normally 45, 46, which is a sort of level that apparently the Banco Central Filipino decided is quite conservative to keep. And is a very well managed bank, the Banco Central Filipino, so the banking system is extremely solid as the fundamental of the economy. So going back to the smallest things of the business, I recommend, like you are seeing now in these little notes that are very basic, but it's very important to spend a little time in really researching, because the Philippine market is a bit erratic in this moment. If I have to do a comparison, it's like when there was boom maybe in the 60s or in the 50s. Prices are quite erratic on certain commodities, so you have really to study very well your segment of the market, because with the strength of the pesos, the possibility to produce here or to import, this is the big equation that you have always to analyze. Very, very important. Then I recommend, since for me has been a fantastic experience, to, of course, stay in this export zone, Philippine Economic Zone Authority is called, where there are the 5-year tax benefit, but this is, I think, for any exporter is allowed. And then there is also another tax system which is quite interesting, and is based in because the tax on corporate, like in the income tax in the Philippines, are not low compared to the neighborhood country. I mean, you have Singapore, you have Hong Kong, you have other countries nearby, but instead the Philippines is quite high. I don't want to go into the easy polemics, funny, nobody pay, blah, blah, blah. No, excuse me, but for example, for the export and then all the official established business, and I would say, allow me to say also that during this last administration of President Aquino, the BIR, which is the institution that controls the taxpayer, has been extremely professional, extremely cooperative, and extremely rigid also. So there has been also a change of mentality in the country, and I salute this in a positive way, because being also a CPA in the past, I always follow the rules, and so I didn't have any big problem. So what I was saying, there are important rules inside this export zone. For example, you can import and then re-export free of any duty, but the tax system is based on a flat rate of 5% on the gross income. And so it means that even though you are losing money, still you have to pay the 5% on the gross margin. And in some way, it looks a little bit friendly.
Unmuted.
And the gross margin, of course, is computed only by direct cost of production. You can deduct only the direct cost of production, which is labor, raw material, power, and a few other things, and from the revenue. And so it's quite, in terms of a final number, it's like you to pay a sort of 2%, 2.5% on the total revenue. So I think it's quite reasonable and easy to compute. There are not so many discussions. This is deductible, this is not deductible. Direct labor, direct cost of manufacturing deducted from the revenue, 5% on that. And this is, I think, is also an important incentive if you stay on those export zones. And also there is a certain high degree of protection, are all fenced, and the laborers are more, let's say, protected by the Department of Labor, but I think there is a sane environment. I hope I covered enough of my sector, let's say.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Well, now we've heard the overview of the real estate sector and its opportunities for as an example of what we are doing next. I'd like to quickly mention WorldBex and the EU Pavilion that we are putting together at the one of the largest building and construction expositions in Asia. So we are bringing European SMEs to participate in an EU Pavilion at WorldBex in March next year, and that will that's our way of also supporting and promoting new entrants to the market. So if you're interested in participating, please contact us directly. And that brings our webinar to an end. I'd like to thank our experts and speakers for their contributions and sharing their insights, and also all the participants for sharing your morning or afternoon with us. Thank you very much.